This is Moneyline Mania with Chaz and the crew.
Doesn't look like there's a crew today, but we have Chaz. Chaz, what's going on, bud?
Yeah, you know what? We do with a lot of guys, but as you know, it's summertime, and, Speedy spends a lot of the week getting guests for your show. Sometimes it's harder to get them. I'm pretty comfortable in my ability to handle it.
Well, that's good. I mean, obviously, we haven't seen Wes in a couple of weeks. We've seen Hector. Hector's been here, and the two Johns and all the other guys that you have. I'm just happy that you're getting better, and hopefully we'll see your show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network soon.
I'm chomping at the bit, as they say. Speaking of chomping at the bit, guess what I'm going to do for you guys starting next week? Not this week, but next week. I'm going to be giving out a thoroughbred horse race at Saratoga for Sundays.
Oh, how wonderful.
And unfortunately, I mentioned to Speedy through the week that last weekend we stunk pretty heavily here, but that's not how we roll. We don't worry about it. We move on. When you lose at sports betting, you have to stop and you have to say, and this is really a sports betting 101 kind of tip. You have to say, why did I lose? Did I lose because I did bad handicapping, or did I lose because they call it gambling? Sometimes you lose because they call it gambling for a reason.
So why don't we get into it, my friend? Some gambling conversations, some of the games that are coming up. Where are you going to go in baseball? That's what we're going into?
Well, let's look at baseball. How cool is it? First of all, of course, tomorrow's games, we're going to look at 3 games, are the last games before the All-Star break. They have a saying, if you're in first place at the All-Star break, you got a good shot of winning. But when was the last time you saw every single team in a division that was 500 or better? I think the NL West did it a few years back, but it doesn't happen very often. But this morning when we woke up, Baltimore was at 500. Every single team in the AL East. And you mentioned it earlier in the year that there's a good shot that every single team that is a playoff in the AL that isn't from the other 2 divisions is going to be in the AL East.
It's crazy because if Baltimore was in any other division, it'd be in second place in all of them. And that's how dominant the American League East is. And these guys play against each other like 16, 17 times a year. And they're back and forth with each other. It's crazy how Baltimore is playing right now. They're 45-45. Toronto is not playing as well, 48-43. And then so is Boston. And right now, Tampa, I expected Tampa to play a little bit better. And they're 12 games out of the Yankees. I think the Yankees haven't played well, as everybody has been saying. They're 4-6 in the last 10 games. But I think the Yankees are hitting a skid. Every team hits a skid every single year. So I didn't expect, even the Dodgers, when they had the 110-win season a couple of years ago, they hit a skid where in 10 games, they lost 6 or 7 games. So I'm not surprised that the Yankees have hit their skid. I just hope that they don't go on a further skid after the All-Star break, especially yesterday when they had a chance to beat Boston and completely choked.
Well, yeah, and that's a great point. I remember that skid for the Dodgers you're talking about because it was the summer, and I was in Las Vegas to get our bets in for the contest. You have to physically go there to get your bets in, or you got to use a proxy. So what we did was we were sitting in the bar, and this young kid comes up, and I say young kid, he could have been in his 30s, but he was younger than me. And he says, I'm hopping on the Dodgers. There's no way they can lose 4 in a row. I looked around there, I said, they totally can lose 4 in a row. And at they were like minus 370. The numbers that are just astronomically hard to make any kind of money if you're sports betting. And sure enough, I think they lost 7-2 that night. Or I was just hoping the guy didn't bet a lot of money.
It's not even an argument that the American League has the most talent when it comes to teams in all of baseball. I love it when I hear Met fans say, well, we're in a pretty good division. Not really. Right now, besides the 2 teams on top, the other 3 teams are not as good.
The Marlins can't hit, the Phillies can't pitch, so judge that accordingly.
I mean, both the Marlins and the Philadelphia Phillies, they all have 40 wins, and Washington's horrible. But, yeah. I mean, their division's not that bad, but the Yankees' division is just ridiculous. It really, and they're playing against each other.
No, I don't think anybody's arguing that.
They're playing against each other 16, 17 times a year. By itself, it's ridiculous how they play against one another and how they're all 500 against one another. It's crazy, but let's get into it.
One other thing I want to mention is so you're going to get the All-Star break, and that's fine. You can bet the home run derby. You can bet the All-Star game under, because it almost always is under. But when these teams come back and they start playing into the second half, you're going to see teams when you're handicapping that have lost 3 or 4 in a row. Right now, we've got a couple teams. Well, one of them's won, I think, Seattle, right?
12 in a row.
Was that 10 in a row?
Yeah, that got snapped, yeah.
What I look for is those teams that have won or lost 3 or 4 in a row. that is when you got to hop on those teams. If you think about it, guys, in life, when things are going good, right, everything goes good. When things are going bad, it's amazing. I mean, the morning you lock your keys in your car, you lose your keys, you get a flat tire, something happens at work. I mean, it's like life knows when you're down and it piles on.
Boy, does
and
it
I always
ever.
would, when I was doing training, I would tell people, this is how I describe it. When you're up and life's good, you're whistling, walking down the sidewalk, and then there's a $20 bill sitting there, and you pick it up and you got a $20 bill. When you're miserable and things are going bad, you're cursing the world, you're looking up at the sky, complaining to God, why me, and you walk right over that 20, you don't see it.
You know, it's
and that's what I'm telling people. When teams are down and they're in the funk, like you mentioned, Errol, you got to stay down. Keep betting against them. Even if they're the Dodgers or Houston or all those 4 teams that we talk about that as the best 4 teams in the league. Because if they go 2-1 and you're taking the other team at plus 300, you've lost more games than you've won, and you have more money in your pocket than when you started. And really, as you know from the beginning in Sports Betting Weekly, all we talk about, we don't care about winning percentage. How much money I got in my pocket, how much should I start with?
You were just mentioning finding money and feeling like you're rich. My girlfriend's mother found $600 at Stop and Shop. So she's $600 richer. Very lucky. I've lost money.
That's a nice one. You don't find. I found the $100 bill in a wallet with no ID once. That was pretty cool.
I never found anything in my life. I've lost, but $600 is quite a lot of money, and she found it.
No doubt about it, especially at Stop and Shop because prices are going up, so that'll help you in the bread aisle for sure.
Yeah, let's not get into the prices in our wonderful, wonderful country.
Don't get into the bread aisle or the milk aisle at Walmart with Errol either. He's had some interesting encounters there.
Yes.
So when I was done looking at the games for tomorrow, I realized that I picked 3 games. I picked the 2 New York teams and the San Diego team, and I didn't do it on purpose. It just was the way it ended up working out because I go through games and I say, I want nothing to do with that game, And we've talked enough in the past that you guys know, just because I don't have action when a game starts doesn't mean I'm not hopping on it. The other night in that Yankee game, I remember it was really low scoring in like the 7th inning, and I hopped on the over 4.5 runs. And the next thing I know, they're in extra innings, and they scored like 10s. And I'll talk about that with this first game, the last game in the series of the Boston at the Yankees. And what do we know? That headed into Saturday, they had 4 straight games go over. But Sale's pitching for Boston. And if you saw him come back, they had him on a short leash, right? But he did pretty well that first start. And then Cole's pitching. Now, Cole's last start, that number, 7 innings, 11 Ks, 4 hits, 0 runs. That's a pretty good number. But what I'm looking at is the game before that, when they played against Boston, and Boston scored 5 runs. It was a 6-5 Boston win. I'm going to lean towards the over here, but I'm a little hesitant about hopping on it early because these 2 pitchers are really good pitchers. So what I'm looking at is it's right about 8.5, and I'm going to have a small little play on the 8.5, but I'm sitting around and I'm paying attention to that game tomorrow. I'm not sure what I'll be doing Sunday morning here in San Diego, but it's still early enough that I'll be starting my day. I won't be rocking and rolling. So I'll have that game on, and I'll be waiting for that total to drop to 6.5. As soon as it drops to 6.5, I'm going to bet it again. So it's going to be probably about 8.5 to start, maybe 7.5, 8 to start. It's hard to tell when you got a guy like Sale coming back because you don't know what they're going to give him. And we've seen it, and you mentioned it too, Errol, how the bullpens are just dropping the ball on a lot of these teams.
Mm-hmm. Chaz, I know what you could do on Sunday morning with your winnings. You could buy one of those Padres pink and teal jerseys, the new ones.
Yeah, they got a lot of not love out here on social media. I'll tell you
I
that.
love them. I can't stand the brown ones. I love the pink.
I'm even going to predict this. Rafael Devers hits a home run against Garrett Cole because he's been doing it every single game ever since he's met Garrett Cole. He's the only player in the major league that has 6 or more home runs against Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole, the second guy, I think only has three home runs against him. Garrett Cole doesn't give up a lot of home runs.
I will pay attention and try to find that as a prop. You can almost always find the main players to hit 1 home run as a prop bet, so I'll look for that for sure.
He kills Garrett Cole, always. And the last time he met Garrett Cole in a game, he had 2 home runs against Garrett Cole. He has his number, and great pitchers have always had players that have your number. No
doubt.
So, and
Isn't it funny, too, because sometimes they're not great hitters. They're just a guy in the lineup, but for some reason they up their game against certain pitchers. It's so funny how that happens. And their guy that might be a triple crown candidate is batting 178 against the same pitcher.
Greatest Met killer of all time in my lifetime was Pat Burrell, who hit 7th in that lineup. For the
Also,
Phillies.
Chipper Jones.
Well, yeah, but Chipper Jones is actually a great player. This
Right,
is going
exactly,
to
exactly.
points. Like
But he killed the Mets.
Pat Burrell was a big-time Met killer and wasn't even that good of a player.
His name is his trivia contest name. Everybody knows Chipper Jones.
Right.
You know? All right, so then a little later, the Mets are at Chicago. Peterson's pitching his last 15 innings. This is pretty cool. These are two pitchers, right? The last 15 innings, he gave up 8 runs on 4 homers. He's matching up at Chicago against Sampson, who his last 16 innings gave up 8 earned runs and 3 homers. When you give up 8 earned runs in 16 innings or 15 innings, that is stinky poo, as they say. So we're going to take the over in that game. You never know with Chicago. One of the things about betting at Chicago Cubs games is you got to check the weather in the morning. They have a website. Is it blowingout.com or something like that? It's,
to
it's
judge
all
the
about
wind
the
patterns? Yeah.
I'm going with the over. It's probably going to be about 8.5, and that's the kind of game you'll know early. But I'm telling you right now, the way I play these bets is if I start the game with the action, I'm paying attention to that action. Last night, I had a situation where I was at a barbecue. Everybody's eating hot dogs and hamburgers. I'm eating chicken breasts, with nothing on it. But I couldn't get reception at this party. So I had a couple plays that I would end up winning, and I didn't. I couldn't get the betting because my phone was just spinning because they were in a canyon. Normally, yeah, if I start a game with action, I'm going to be involved. And then as Wes and I and John from GMF Sports talk about that, live action, it's really great for bailing you out. You thought a game was going to go over, and it doesn't go over, but then you hop out of that 6.5 or 4.5 like with the Yankee game, and then it ends up going over for both, and you end up hitting both tickets. Those are simple pleasures. And then later, 4 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock, Arizona at San Diego. So this one I'm going with the under. The reason I'm going with the under, in Kelly's last 5 starts for Arizona, he's thrown at least 96 pitches. You've heard me talk about pitch count before. I love betting pitchers that throw a lot of pitches because they're going 7 and 8 innings. And if you're going 7 or 8 innings, you're pitching good, right? Your coach would take you out. The manager's first, the pitching coach comes out. I forget the rules on how many times they could come out before they got to pull them. Sometimes you see it, and you know this guy's coming out, and there's other times where they never even touch the top of the dugout steps. But every start since June, when he's allowed 2 runs or more, the next start he's allowed 1 run or less. And this is going back now for 5 or 6 starts. Last game, he gave up 2 runs. So this game, he's supposed to give up 1 or less based on nothing but pure luck, of course. But that's what it looks like when you look at it. And then Clevenger got rocked last 2 games. He pitched only 11 innings. He gave up 8 earned runs. But before that, at Arizona, he one-hit this team through 6 in a 4-0 win. I am taking under. So I've got really all totals. I don't care if Boston wins. I don't care if the Yankees win. I don't care if the Mets win. I don't care if the Cubs win. I don't care if Arizona wins. And I don't care if San Diego wins. I'm going with totals.
It seems like you don't care about much of anything.
The Mets better win.
Yeah.
They better not lose to the Cubs.
But you never know, right? It's that last game before the All-Star break. You don't know what's on these guys' minds. It's not like these games are important, right? The Cubs don't have a shot. I think they're 2-8 in their last 10. They're 20 games under 500. The Mets, boy, that was a big series against Atlanta. Didn't they play well in Atlanta?
2 out of 3, yep.
So you never know what's going through these guys' mind because they're getting this time off if they're not on the All-Star game. Remember when the Giants rented that boat?
Uh-huh.
Odell Beckham and Justin Biebs.
Yeah.
The Biebs, who's, by the way, getting healthy. So hopefully it'll be good.
I like that Devers home run prop, though, Errol.
Yeah.
I like that.
If you look at what Devers has done against Garrett Cole, he's just absolutely crushed him. And Garrett Cole even said it after the game when he hit 2 home runs against him. He says, I guess people have to give me pointers because I have no idea how to stop this guy. So it's unbelievable. Rafael Devers is one of the best young hitters throughout the league.
Oh, he's very good.
And hopefully the Red Sox figure out how they sign him, or hopefully not, because I don't want to see him anymore in the American League.
I am excited to be the official thoroughbred correspondent for the Weekend Crunch next week.
We're really excited, and we're happy that you're getting better. Tell Wesley, Hector, and all those guys we're looking forward to seeing him again.
Well, the next time you see Blackhawk West, he will have a child.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
His wife is due any day between now and I think the 24th is when they induce
How
labor.
old is Wes?
I don't know. I think he's 40 now.
Yeah, he's my age. He might be a little bit older than me, but
Just got married recently.
Yeah,
he got
good.
married on the same day as somebody else I know. They have the same wedding anniversary.
good for him. He's a good guy, and I'm so happy.
Oh, he's
for
a
him.
great guy.